Hello, tile friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Tile Money Podcast. Tile Money is strengthening the tile industry. We're doing this with our business education designed for contractors by contractors. This education is helping tile contractors around the world to build sustainable, profitable businesses. The result is a stronger industry from the installer up. Today, we've got a great interview, a great roundtable discussion. I have three guests today. Just one of these guests would be amazing, but to have all three, wow, we're excited today. We've got very talented people in the audience, and we're anxious to get into their businesses and get some advice on how to charge for Mosaic tile work. We've got Angie Halford Ré out of Utah State. We got Joshua Nordstrom from Alaska, and we've got Callewaert from Wisconsin. So before we bring them on and get into their businesses, I would like to take a quick minute to thank our sponsors. These are the companies who are investing back into you, the tile contractor, the listener. It's good to be here with everybody. Thanks for commenting. And as we get to know these guests today, feel free to ask them your questions. All right, so our first sponsor is the NTCA, and that's where you can make friends with some of the nation's most professional tile contractors. The NTCA is the oldest and largest association for tile contractors. And you go to these events, you go to some of their free trainings open to the public, and you're going to be able to meet tile contractors from around the nation, get to know their business, and it's incredible. It's incredible. If you're looking for mentors, you can and will find them in the NTCA. Reach out to Jim Olson on Facebook or LinkedIn. Laticrete International is another sponsor of ours. Laticrete is one of the oldest manufacturers of the modern tile installation materials that we use today. They're continue to be innovative from the day they invented thinset to now today, innovating, coming out with some of the most innovative grout like Spectralock 1, which was released last year, and everybody is loving it who's using these products like Spectralock 1. So GoBoard is another one of our sponsors we would like to thank. GoBoard is a Johns Mansville's company. It is a lightweight waterproof tile backer board, and it's easy to cut, easy to handle, easy to install. You can build the complete shower assembly with the GoBoard products. And time is money, and GoBoard is designed to save you time and earn you more money. And Happy Tile Guy is the best place to get your professional website built for tile guys by a tile guy. Yours truly. And if you enjoy this show, please go over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. All right, without further ado, I'd love to bring on the guests. Hey, Josh.
How's it going?
It's going good. Where are you coming from and the name of your business, please?
I am in Homer, Alaska, and the name of my business is Tierra Tile LLC.
Nice. At Tierra Tile on Instagram?
At Tierra Tile on Instagram, and I guess you could just find me at Tierra Tile on Facebook.
Nice. And we've got Lee Callewaert.
Hey everybody, Lee Callewaert at Dragonfly Tile and Stoneworks out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And Angie Ré.
Hey everybody, I'm Angie, and my studio is based out of South Salt Lake, Utah, and my business is Unique Mosaics.
Excellent. Now, probably everybody that's listening is familiar with your companies and the art you all of you produce. But if they're not, I highly recommend my listeners to find these good folks either in Facebook, on Instagram. You can find all these good artisan people attending most of the trade shows, and make friends with them. They are doing something really cool inside their Facebook group, which we'll get into, which was started by Josh and Lee, I believe, collaboration with the NTCA. They're doing a lot of cool things with the NTCA. All three of these people here today. So let's get into it. We'll just do this roundtable. We'll start with Josh and then go to Angie. We'll ask Josh the first question. Tell us about your business, kind of, the 30,000 foot overview, Josh. How did it get started? And then, fast forward to today, what it looks like.
Well, the way my business got started is I dove straight into it, just going for the artistic side of things. In high school, I didn't make it through college, or I didn't even make it to college. Made it through high school with art being my favorite of all the classes. I did a lot of pottery classes. Right out of high school, I bought a kiln, and I started making tiles. I was just doing a lot of sculptures and whatnot. I had a friend asked me to make some tiles for a thing he was working on. That's just kind of where it started for me. And I just went into it thinking, I could just make tiles and sell handmade tiles. Well, that's a great idea, but it's really hard to pull off. So it just kind of led me into, I was always doing just carpentry work. I've done just about everything you can do in the industries. And I found myself kind of wanting to do more tile work. So I bought a tile saw and just kind of taught myself how to tile, like I think a lot of guys do. And, and I'm guilty early on of not doing everything the right way, as a lot of guys do. And, fast forward here 20 plus years later, I'm still doing tile. I do it full time. That's all I do. And the artwork has gone from 1 to maybe 2 projects a year to 6 to 12 projects a year. It just all depends on how big they are. So my goal is to make it to Angie's status and just do art and nothing but art, but I still find myself doing regular installs. So I'm almost there.
Okay. So you would like to be in the studio?
Yeah, I'd like to just be in the studio. Well, I mean, I'd like to do the installs too still, but
okay.
I'd like to, I don't want to be just doing floors and backsplashes, unless there's some artistic element to it. So Homer's a pretty small place, so I've kind of got to take what comes at me a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of feel like I'm getting closer and closer to the point where I can just say yes to the artwork and no to everything else. So still a little ways off, but that's my ultimate goal.
Very cool. Very cool. And Angie, tell us the same question to you. What did it look like on day one? And then what does it evolve to today, please?
Okay. Well, that's a really big difference between where I started and where I am now. To begin with, if you go back to the very beginning, I wanted to do a project with my kids, and that was back in 2004. I was homeschooling them, was looking for an art project, and I ran across mosaics, and I was particularly inspired by this one mosaic of this crab that I saw online, and I just couldn't stop staring at it. And I thought it was super cool, so I got into it that way. That's where just this, the seed was planted. And then, so after that, it started to become a passion. I started doing projects as a hobbyist. And fast forward to about 2012, I started doing flooring installation. And so I was thinking, I want to incorporate this somehow. I'd like to take all of my experience. I had a degree in graphic design and advertising, always been involved in art, in some form my whole life. And I just had this dream, that came about. It was like, I want to work for contractors. I want to be able to do this. This is like, I feel it in my blood. Like, this is what I want to do. So about 2016, I started, I entered a contest for a tile. But previously, before that, I want to back up a little bit. I immersed myself in the social media, in the tile world. I wanted to learn how to actually install properly. So, and use that in mosaic art. So after I won the contest in 2016, which was the GTP ArtX competition, that kind of put me on the map, so to speak. And I started getting a lot of calls and a lot of messages for custom work. And so much that I was able to open a business when I moved to Utah, and it became more of a profession, at that point. And now that's pretty much all I do. I don't install anymore. It's pretty rare that I do the installation on site. I'm now considered a manufacturer as far as my business goes. So I definitely, I'm very thankful to where I am now. So it's looking good so far. Now I'm busy enough where I'm considering to, might have to hire somebody to help.
Wow. So in essentially 5, I mean, once you got up to 2016, in 5 years' time, here we are in 2021, you're at the point where you're in your studio virtually full time, to the point where you're considering hiring another.
Yeah. I work on about 2 to 3 projects at a time. They might be in different phases. Might be prepping one, designing one, and working on one, or I might be working on 3, but I've got a lot going on at one time, so I can just keep the flow so I can stay busy.
That's we definitely kind of need to dig into how you're going to find your help, because finding help is hard enough, right? And now you have this product that's unique to you. Now you need to essentially clone another Angie, right? Teach the process. So we'll dig into that in a little bit. But in 2016, when you started getting phone calls, were these from contractors primarily who said, we saw the Ardex
the majority of my business came from contractors, but I've also gotten business from architects, designers, homeowners that have found me on the internet, through my Instagram page or my website, things of that nature, or just word of mouth. So I'm able to work nationwide rather than just locally.
Sure.
Because of that.
Yeah. Excellent. Now, Lee, Callewaert, tell us about the same deal, 30,000 feet. What was it like the day you started up until what your business looks like today, please?
Well, I started in Tennessee a couple of years under a master craftsman, ended up working about 15 years for a contractor in Milwaukee here, where I did mainly high-end residential. And then for the last 20 years, Jane and I have had Dragonfly. I think what's been the constant throughout all of that time is I always wanted to manipulate the materials. Every chance I got, and I've done this forever, it's been a constant for 37 years. But if I was given a couple hundred feet of 12 by 12 marble, I just wasn't satisfied until I at least presented an option to the client where I just made up a pattern with just laying the pieces over the top of each other and just creating this unique, crazy pattern. Then I went from that to cutting up the material and making designs to inlay into the floors or walls or whatever. And that's always, it's been there for 35 out of the 37 years. And then, it was obviously where I am today is based on where I came from, but that was inevitable to do what I do today. We don't just do that artistic side. We still do installations, but more and more and more. I still like installing, so unless somebody doesn't want to fly me in to install the piece I made, I would prefer to see the project through all the way, because it's not just about making the piece of art. There's another art form of inlaying it into the background, cutting it in. That's an art form itself. And there can be, you can make that another elevate your work just by the cut-in install process of materials and designs and what have you.
Sure.
So, yeah, we have a lot of artwork that we've been pushing out in the last several years.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, we're going to dive into that a little bit. The main topic, of course, we want to get into is pricing. That's something the three of you are constantly asked with the work, the work you're doing with the NTCA. I know you're doing a lot of this style conversations, right, with the guild and things like that. And pricing is one of the main questions we get in Tile Money. And it's even harder, I would think, when you're doing this type of work. One thing I noticed, the common thread with all three of you, it seems like you really had to bring your artwork to the attention of potential clients, to the communities that you live and work in, whether that be like Angie's case. I mean, her community is very large nationwide, but it's all on the internet. And Lee and Joshua, their community, they had to know that Lee was capable of, I imagine it was a 12 by 12 marble. You told that story. Most of us would, get it in, grout it, get on to the next one. You had to say, I see something here. I see, and by design, you mean with the veining, correct? Or
actually laying the marble on top of each other and creating shapes inside shapes and creating patterns.
And so you were, okay.
So I was fabricating the tiles.
Oh, fabricating the tiles. Okay. So like cutting them up different sizes.
Yeah.
And, okay, cool. I wasn't sure. So you had to say, this is what we could do. This is an option, and present it to the client and kind of introduce your, when you're bringing a new product to the market, which each one of you are, you're individual artists. Nobody can create really what's in your brain. They can get close, but everybody has their own twist on this, which is such a neat opportunity. It does sound like it's maybe a little bit more work, but the payoff, I think we're going to learn as we get into this is large. Joshua, let's go to the second question with you. What's been your biggest obstacle for your business so far, and how are you overcoming it, or how did you overcome it?
There's no question the biggest obstacle for me has been the business side. The business is not a natural thing for me. The work, I don't have a hard time getting the work. Sometimes it's just, somehow it just finds me. It's because I'm in a small town here where everybody knows that I'm the decorative tile guy. So just spending enough time here, the work comes. For me, the creativity just kind of flows too. The business has been the hardest part. The past few years, I'm in 2 years now. I've with the bookkeeper. That was massive. Like I would try to, I'd go to work every day and work, and then come home and try to do all the paperwork. And then for me, my idea of like tax season was just pulling a shoebox full of receipts out and try to itemize everything and go to the tax guy when he smacks himself on the forehead and is like, oh my God, you're one of these guys. So the bookkeeper's massive. They take care of that for me. That's done every single month. Every single penny that goes in and out of my business is accounted for. Another huge thing for me was paying myself a salary instead of just cashing a $10,000 check and being like, wow, I got $10,000 on this job. Let's try to rat hole some money for taxes. And that's totally history now. So now I pay myself a flat salary. That was pretty massive. And then just finding a good CPA. I'm on my third CPA now. This is the second year I've been with this company, and they've just done really well for me. So it's really hard for something like a CPA. It's got to be a word of mouth. I don't know anybody that just opens up the yellow pages and scrolls through and just tries to find an accountant. So, you just kind of have to talk to everybody and see who people are using and whatnot. But the business part, I learned I learn something new every day. It doesn't matter what project I'm on, but business wise, every single year I learn something new. So it's it's a constant learning curve for me.
What I can imagine, there's a lot of benefits to getting a bookkeeper and a CPA, and, a lot less stress, I would imagine. Is there anything that surprised you? Like, wow, I didn't know this about my business or my money, or, is there anything surprising that was like?
Well, I don't know about surprising. It's just the bookkeeper has, for these PPP loans when they came out, I didn't have the time to go figure out the PPP loans and all that. I'm like, whatever. So, my bookkeeper was the one that cemented all that in for me and got all that going. And so that, that was huge. I don't know if there's any real surprises with the bookkeeper. It's surprising how smooth the business flows when you've got somebody that you trust doing that for you. And sure, it's just another expense, but that's just part of the overhead. You just have to charge a little more to allow your company to pay for somebody to do your books for you.
Yeah.
And all this stuff is learned by your podcast too. I mean, your podcast came along at the same time when I just started to I was getting the new CPAs and I was looking for a bookkeeper, and everything just kind of came together at the right time, and it just really my business is 180 degrees different than it was 3 years ago, before I found all these groups and Tile Money and everything. So it's all been great. I mean, your podcast alone has helped a lot in my business, and I'm sure a lot of people's businesses listening to this right now, because most of us are in this industry because we didn't make it to college, and we're not business minded people. We know how to work. Then you got to learn the business side of it. So
it's good reminders, keeps it top of mind, kind of, hey, business is important too. One thing that surprised me about my bookkeeper and looking over the numbers with her from their perspective, it surprised me how bad my business was doing. When you look at the financials, and she's like, you know what this means here? You're not doing so good. So it's a good thing. It's good to be aware of that, because like you said, when we get those $10,000, $20,000 checks, we think we're on top of the world, but sometimes that's not the case. Angie, how about yourself? What's been your biggest obstacle, and how are you overcoming it?
Well, I think my biggest obstacle starting out was starting with nothing, like absolutely nothing, no tools. I was at the time a single parent with 5 children, and I did mosaics on the side. I had, sometimes 2 to 3 jobs that I was working that were had nothing to do with tile. So I guess, no tools, no money, starting a business from just an idea, basically, has been my biggest obstacle that I overcame. And basically, I overcame it one job at a time. The first job, I bought a tool, and so on and so forth. So the next job, I bought something else. I started out with a $10 pair of nippers from, a box store.
Sure.
And I worked with those for many years before I realized, hey, I need to spend $60 and buy the cool nippers. And then after that, I kept building into my prices, the tools I would need for that job. And then like the larger purchases, tile saws and whatnot, they came as I had to save money, save up. And I've acquired so much now that I have, I think, everything that I need. There are some things I want still, but that's definitely been a huge challenge for me. And now that I'm in my studio, then there's studio things that I needed to get. And I got that piece by piece. I didn't go and get a business loan. I bought shelving a little bit at a time. I bought a desk, just different things that I needed for the business and to keep it running. And So basically, yeah, now I have that job full time and I don't have to work on the extra jobs
You
anymore.
you don't have 2 or 3 other jobs anymore?
No.
Thank God.
Yeah.
And no loan ever to get into that.
No loan from anyone. I did have some help with certain manufacturers, like donated tools to me. And that was a huge help. I don't think they realized how much that helped, but it did.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's pretty much been a big challenge.
Well, congratulations. That's
Thank you.
a lot. Sounds like a lot on your plate for several years there. But the good news is, I mean, you know, 5 years looking back, that goes by like that quick, right?
It did. Yeah.
And here you are. Look at how far you've come. What, looking back, is there one thing you now know, like, oh, I could have probably shaved off a year or done this and it would have alleviated this stress? Is there one thing you can point to that comes to your mind?
I probably should have done some sort of invoicing software a long time ago, because the paperwork has been a stress to me.
Yeah.
Because it's not really in my wheelhouse.
Sure.
That and having to do everything by myself. I do all my own paperwork, everything, all the work that goes into it, the planning. I think some people think I have a team, but it's rare that I have help come in, but I do hire temp workers here and there whenever I have an abundance of projects that I need to crank out and have like strict deadlines. So at that point, I do bring in others, but most of the time it's just me.
Nice. Lee, same question to you. What's been your biggest obstacle in the business, and how did you overcome it, or how are you overcoming it?
Well, I feel a little guilty because I never had the problem of doing the paperwork, answering the phone, scheduling. As you know, I have Jane. So thank goodness. Without her, I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't make any money because I'd have to hire somebody to do all those things. But the biggest thing I think for me over the years, not as much so today, but in the past, and it just did happen on a job, is people getting between myself and the client. Sometimes there's this whole chain of command. There's designers and GCs and architects, and then the painter has an opinion too. Sometimes it just seems like there's all these people like in the middle. You have to have 10 meetings to get to the point that I made day one after 5 minutes in the meeting. And it's just exhausting. The time it takes out of your days when you know what the answer is, but you just can't like say, all right, everybody shut up, I got it. You know, you have to go through the process. And I don't mind doing, I do that with clients all the time. And I get that. If I'm working, which I always do, 90% of the time is work directly with the client. So I'm more than happy to go through that process with them because I want to make sure that they get exactly what they were looking for. But I can help guide them much more quickly if I'm in direct contact, not telling the designer who tells the GC who tells the client. And by the time it gets back to me, it doesn't sound quite like what I said.
Yeah.
So, but fortunately, for the most part, I don't have to deal with that anymore just because of my reputation, I guess. Even the designers, they know I'm not stepping on their toes, and they'll gladly just step aside, and they know I've got it handled, and they know they're in good hands.
Yeah, that was, I mean, how did you get to that point? I mean, that seems like a mountain of a task in itself. I mean, I understand what you're saying. At some point you step in and take over the communication with the client, but they're still involved, obviously, in the project. Mm-hmm. But I could imagine that, some designers I know wouldn't want that relationship to look like that.
It's a steep mountain. It really is.
Yeah.
But I think if you, and it took a while, but if you prove yourself over and over and over to have the answer within one meeting, and we all get to move on, and everybody feels good about it and confident, and it's over. We have contractors that hire us specifically for that reason. They don't have to, once they hire us, they know their job is done. They introduce us to the client. They just took us off of their worry chart or their check-in chart.
Sure.
There's nothing for them to do.
Yeah.
Ask us if we need anything. How you guys doing? How you having a good day? That's about it. So it's a good place to be after many years.
Yeah. It sounds like a good place, and it sounds like it really does just take time. You're not going to go out of the gate and have that, relationship. It's
well, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
You or else you can make a lot of enemies real quick. So
I think now is a good time to jump into the pricing questions, and I just want to I'm going to share a screen here before we get into the pricing questions, just because there might be some folks who haven't really seen your work. So I just want to share. Obviously we can't look at it like all your work, but we're going to share a few posts here. This is something Angie created, I believe last year, or in the last, sometime in the last 12 months for sure, and shipped it to a contractor states away. I'm looking at a tree stump for all of you listening.
Yeah, that was in progress. That was before grouting.
Oh, okay. This was before grouting. So if you're listening, you can hop over to YouTube about the 30-minute mark and look at these photos. This is another Angie project here. I think it says Corvette there.
Mm-hmm. It's for bar and grill.
For a showroom bar and grill.
Mm-hmm. And
then Indian street food curry up now, which I think is a chain.
Yeah.
Because I think I've eaten there. Yeah. So that's, but you got like the local one in Utah, or?
Yeah, and it's a backlit sign. So they hung that up. It's mounted on plexiglass, and they backlit and framed it out.
Very cool.
And it's inside the restaurant.
And then this one is for?
That's for a fraternity. And it's actually for a shower.
Okay.
I think there's it was a huge shower. So it's a medallion that goes in there for the.
Is it like 36 inches or?
Oh no, I think it's 5 feet.
This
4
one's
to 5 feet in diameter.
Wow, 5 feet in diameter. It's huge. So you're doing some really, really big stuff. This is one of your latest for Dan Heacock's.
Dan. Mm-hmm.
Came out phenomenal. Excellent. And then we're going to get into some of Lee and the Dragonfly team, their work. What are we looking at, Lee?
We're looking at a 13-foot Cobra that started at about 18 inches.
Wow.
Something happened, as usual. Never fails.
It kept growing, huh?
Yeah, I couldn't stop. It just, sometimes the art tells you what to do.
It's phenomenal. And then this was what was this one? A project, a personal project, or? Oh, sorry.
Well, the left one, the Muse, was an experiment with a new templating process. The right one was also an experiment that I was going to sell, but Jane confiscated it the minute I finished it. So she's going to have it installed. She's going to have me install it.
Okay, very cool. And then Lee has employees. So these are evidently 3 of your employees, right?
Yeah.
They're all young, which I'd love to talk to. I don't know if we're going to get to employees today or not, but if anybody's, having trouble finding employees, I always recommend reach out to Lee. He's got a great attitude. He attracts young, eager people, eager to work with the art aspect of things. Am I summarizing that correctly?
Yes.
And then this was your project as well, right? Correct?
Yeah, those are cherry blossom trees in a oceanside glass shower.
Just amazing stuff here.
Gradation.
And then obviously some more what we would call more standard, type tile. I mean, even though this bathroom was pretty wild. There's how many square feet of subway tile in this thing?
I don't even thousands. I don't even know.
Several thousand.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's a vaulted. Is this a master bath?
This is a boathouse.
A boathouse.
And other than the door trim and window trim, everything is tiled.
Incredible.
Everything.
Incredible. And then Joshua up in Alaska gets to work with a lot of, scenery, like mountain scenery, like we're looking at here, the orca in the bottom of the pool. And then this was, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but this was in your personal home.
Yes, that's in our personal home. Just finally looked, it was untiled forever and just indecisive on what to do. And I just found this cool image online and thought, oh, that'd be a cool tile pattern. And we made that with a couple down days we had in our schedule.
Nice. We've got a question from the audience I'd like to address real quick. Chris, good to see you, brother. Thanks for being here with us. What is the base for the Mosaic leaf? Looks well made, Angie. This one, Chris? Leaf. Mosaic leaf. I'm not sure what you can get with them later if we don't get the answer to that one. I'm not sure which one you were.
You might have been asking what the base was for the Mosaic stump.
Stump. Okay.
Well, it's off from a leaf, but that makes more sense.
Probably foam board, right, Angie, for the stump? Oh, I muted her. I'm sorry. You had something was going on. Angie, was that foam for the stump?
Yeah, it was a high density foam for the stump. Yes.
This is another Nordstrom project, I believe.
Yeah, that was for a couple private pilots up in Anchorage. A really cool stairwell, just really framed the piece. But that's actually their airplane, and it's a compass rose flying over a glacier. If you kind of tilt your head, you'll see there's a mountain range over its left wing, and it's kind of it's flying over a glacier with glacier mountain.
What was the dimensions on that?
I think that was 54 inches.
Very cool. And then I think this is one of my personal favorites. It's a shower with plank porcelain, high gloss. It looks like, and a amazing mountain scene. Which, did you say this is out your window or?
Yeah, well, that's out just about everybody's window here. That's looking across Ketchimack Bay at the glaciers. So I do a lot of mountain scenes up here. And that's just another one. And that one's really cool because it's, like you said, it's high gloss. The field tile is all high gloss. So that the mural is just on the back wall. And what you're seeing on the left and right are the reflections. So it appears to be a full wrap, but it's not.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. So just incredible stuff. Everybody, you should be very proud of yourself and your work. Very talented here. So how the heck do you charge? How do you calculate price for stuff like this? Josh, you're first up.
Well, I guess it's just like any other job. You go into it with a mindset of, well, how much time is it going to take? So it's time and materials. And then you need to add some time on because everything always takes longer. That's the way I go into every job. And just try to think, well, is it going to take me a week? Is it going to take me 3 weeks to fabricate it? And then, just go off your day rate and do the math. You can do it by the square footage. But I think a lot of times that scares people away. If you come in and say, oh, I could do this for $350 a square foot, people are going to be like, yeah, right, you can.
Yeah.
So you can go that way, or you can even break it down per tile. Like the piece I'm working on now is just under 400 tiles, and it's just under $4,000. So you can look at it. It's around $10 per tile for fabrication. So you can kind of weigh it out any way you want. If you go with a square footage price, I think a lot of times people are going to get sticker shock. So you have to kind of go into it and explain, well, this is, we're taking boxes of square tile and we are physically hand shaping every single tile. You got to kind of explain your process, and people pretty much realize the process once we're far enough into the consultation and everything, that they understand, what they're paying for, because it's definitely a few steps above the normal tile work. So, if I think it's going to take me 2 weeks in the shop, then I'll add on another 3 or 4 days, just because that's just what happens. It's, you just run into a few things that always slow you up. I think out of all the jobs I've ever done, I think I've probably only came out ahead on like 2 of them. And I know that sounds crazy, but I don't know. For me, I do it more because I love it than to be getting rich off it. I started out in Southern Arizona, and when I told everybody I was moving to Alaska to do tile art, people thought I was crazy. It's like, why are you going to Alaska of all places to do tile art? You should stay in the Southwest. And I was like, well, it's not for me. It's like, I'm doing what I want to be doing. And, that's the motivating factor. It's not the money. So, 20 years down the road here, now the money's finally starting to come around. So, I don't know how much of a balance there is there for it, but
so now 20 years on, knowing what you know now, and you're saying the price, I mean, yes, you love it and you enjoy it, and you live and work in a beautiful area, probably with pretty calm natured people because of the environment, right? And so you're kind of choosing to be there for several reasons. Would you go back and tell your younger self, hey, like, you could take some pain away? Because I mean, money's a tool. We need it. Sometimes it hurts if we don't have enough of it, or we can't, get like a physical tool, or, hot water or whatever. But is there something you could give yourself, your younger self, advice, like, do this, like, from day one, and you'll be able to charge a little more, or, alleviate some of that pain? I mean, we talked about the bookkeeping. Is there any advice you would give yourself if you could go back and talk to your younger self?
If I could go back, it would be on the business side of things, and not just don't think that I'm rich every time I do a job, because I didn't realize that, my business needs to make as much or more money than I do in order for my business to survive. There's a lot of overhead. So, I'm making money for myself. I'm making money for my business. I'm making money for my employer or my employee, and I'm making money for the government. So, there's a lot of people that have their hands out. So, if I was to go back in time, I'd have a swift talk with myself about the whole business side of things.
About the numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. Where I'd be today. As the art goes, I think, that just kind of takes on a life of its own. And you just kind of hone your style over the years.
Yeah.
I started off making tile from scratch, and then found myself doing tile work. So then I found myself being a tile contractor. So I went and got myself licensed and all that, and then was working, back in the day of the travertine days, I was cutting a lot of travertine. I'm like, well, why don't I just try cutting some of these shapes out of travertine? And then the light went on. I'm like, well, I can do everything I'm doing here with the handmade tile, and I can do it on soft stone. And that's when the light bulb went off. It's like, oh, so that's when I kind of put all of my pottery equipment to the side, and I just started shaping stone. And then I was on a job where they asked me if I can cut porcelain. And I was like, well, I guess I can. It's going to be a little harder, which it is a little harder, but it's more stable. So, the whole thing just kind of brings, takes on a life of its own, and you just learn little things over the years.
Yeah.
But if I was to go back, yeah, it would be strictly business. Like, teach yourself the business. I mean, in order to get a driver's license, you got to take a test, and you got to, all that. In order to get a contractor's license, you just have to write a check. So
so you're giving them a hard price, right? Or are you saying this is a soft price? It could go up.
Well, I usually go into it and just give them a bid, and I usually stick to my bid unless something drastically goes wrong. I try to stick to it, and I've been doing it long enough now where I have a really good idea of how much time something will take. Usually, I don't feel like I'm losing my shirt on every job like I used to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you got to build a portfolio too. So you got to kind of be willing to lose your shirt on a few jobs to gain the knowledge and experience to move on to the next one.
So there's a couple things. I'll just try to condense it real quick. This is a very common method for pricing, obviously. Give me the price. What's it going to cost for this product, right? Okay. So Josh says he has to be very realistic about his time frame, his estimated time frame. The only way he could do that is, yes, 20 years of experience, but also for all you apprentices out there or whoever starting a business, write down every single day, calculate those hours from the phone calls that you don't win. How much time are you talking to people that you don't even work for? And you've got to calculate all this stuff. How, like, realistically, we'll look at a backsplash and 100 guys will say, oh, it's a day job. A day job? What, are you kidding me? So you really have to know, like, okay, that was 14 and a half hours. That was 18, and then you get to know, oh, wow, there's a pattern. There's a pattern developing here. And, I look at your work and I think, like, man, I would never know how long this shower is going to take me. Well, I've never done one. And you've done a bunch of these now type of projects. So you're starting to understand because you've been paying attention. And also the other side of the coin is get with your bookkeeper, know realistically what a business has to make in order to succeed. It's not just your hourly rate. So those two things I want to just put out there. Angie, same question to you. How are you coming up with your prices? How do you charge?
Okay. Well, now I have kind of a more organized way of coming up with the price. When I first started, it was like, what do I do? Just create a price out of thin air. Like, I had no idea, but it did take time. Like Josh was saying, I try to estimate how many weeks a project will take. And the only way that I know that is from a previous project that's similar. Now, each one of my projects are completely different, but the techniques in one project might be similar to the techniques I would use in a different project. So I'll come up with a weekly salary. I already have that set, what I want to make per week. So I would say to do that, estimate the how many weeks it'll take, estimate how much all of the material will be. And I have like a little chart that I wrote of the different things, the main components that I use. And I don't know if you can see that, but I've got design fees, labor, all materials I need. And then there's a percentage of profit for business. That's important. I wasn't always doing that. And shipping and sales tax. So because I ship out most of my custom tile work to be installed, I have to calculate shipping and sales tax, things like that. But basically, the design fees, labor, and materials, what that total is, I come up with the percentage for the profit for the business. And that's the money that I need to put back into my business and hold it there, to keep it going, like Josh was saying.
Yeah.
So all these components formulate the price. And some people try to look at it like, wow, that's like $350 a square foot.
Right.
But if you want to look at it that way, yeah, it is, or sometimes it's even more. But it's all based on the level of detail. So if I were to do a mosaic that had larger style pieces that were like, 3-4 inches, that would be a different price point than the fine detail. The smaller the tile, the more expensive it is, basically, because there's so many more pieces that need to be cut.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm doing lettering, believe it or not, that's so time consuming to do, like a hexagon floor with cursive lettering throughout, because not only do you have to cut all the pieces of the lettering, but you also have to cut and scribe around all the pieces on the outside of those letters, and mounting and whatnot. But so I guess it does take experience. There's no, I would definitely say to start creating like a spreadsheet of different style mosaics, different types of mosaics that you might want to do, or just stick with one style and figure out how long it takes you, because that's where, as artists, I think where we get the starving artist stigma, because there's a lot of times we spend way more time on a project just because we want to make it look super cool, and we lose out on the profit because we spent so much time trying to get it right.
Yeah.
So, you win some, you lose some there.
So do you have
We're going to do what we want anyways.
Yeah, I hear that. Is there like if you projected 40 hours for a project, I mean, are you checking yourself at 20 hours saying, am I there? Am I doing good? Am I ahead of schedule? Can I slow down? Do I have to speed up?
Yeah, I try to actually make myself a schedule and try to keep on track, and by making small goals. Like, I want to be 25% done by this day, to be 50% done by this day. And that way I can kind of keep myself in check and not busy myself with other things, or, try to micromanage my own time.
Yeah.
So that I can make the most out of what I'm doing,
Yeah. I would think so. That's awesome. We're getting a question. I'm gonna address it after we talk to Lee about his pricing. But if the audience has questions, feel free to put them up in the comment section. Lee, same question to you. How are you charging? How are you coming up with your prices? Any different, or any different spin?
Yeah, I guess so. I think early on in my career, I made a decision that the only way I was going to be in this industry is if I did high-end residential work, because there's so much artistry involved in it just inherently because of what it is, the materials, on and on and on. But and over time, what that's translated into is we're a T&M contractor. I mean, for the most part, when we're hired, it's it's time and materials. Here and there, we might give a range for budgeting. If they want to know if 10, it's going to be between 10 and 15, whatever that range might be, if that helps them put their budget together for the project. A lot of times we're putting artwork in the house. We're also doing other tile work in that house. And then I think the other thing about our approach to some of these things, the picture isn't always clear when we start. It starts with inspiration. And with a lot of our clients, it starts with, I like I like nature, I like this, I like whatever it is. And that just kind of gets the ball rolling. There's no way we could even give them a price, just in the manner in which we approach how organically it all just kind of comes together. It happens over time, and they're involved the whole time. Many times they'll come to the shop and look over the sketches, and then the material selections and tweaking the design. So it would be impossible almost for most of our pieces to even give them a price, just because they evolve. And they also know, you know, anybody in town that's worked around me knows that I will never pass up an opportunity. I'm not going to give you a price and then skip opportunity to make it better because I have to stick to
You're
that
running
price.
out of time. Yeah.
No, if I see an opportunity, I go to the client and say, "Hey, whoa, stop! We got to do this," and they're almost always totally on board. So we're always looking for, you know, opportunity to make it better.
Are you 100% T&M then?
Just about.
Just about.
Here and there, little filler jobs,
Like a
the easy
backsplash or something.
ones
Yeah.
yeah, just the, you know, and most of the time the apprentices can do those,
Sure.
and they're good experience for them to go do those type of things, and those people will want to. But as far as 90% of our work, it's 100% T&M.
And so I was expecting all three guests today to be heavily T&M, but that's not the case here as we've seen. Have you, how many years have you been T&M, Lee?
20.
20 years. And you're obviously loving it. Otherwise you wouldn't. And it works for you and your clients. What do you have any pushback over the 20 years? I mean, now you're probably at a point where everybody kind of knows the routine, but some years ago, was there a lot of pushback when you first introduced that pricing structure?
I guess there were some that, you know, because it's not the norm. But I had already been around when we started this business. I had already been working in this region for 17 years, 15 years. So I had already built a reputation when we started this business. So that transferred. And a lot of people found me after Jane and I started Dragonfly. Obviously, I wasn't reaching out to people. That's, you know, because I was working for somebody else, but they found me. And so it was a pretty smooth transition.
It's good to be in demand and realize that and recognize that, right? We've got a question from Kim. If a client says they have a X amount of budget, not to go over it, will you alter your design to fit that budget, Lee?
Yeah, we've done it.
Sure.
We've done it.
Yeah.
If somebody really wants a piece of art, and, you know, people of all income brackets love art.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if somebody really wants a piece, and I'll just say, well, this is what we can do for that, for your budget, for what you want. This is what we can do.
So I have a question for you. For you as well as Angie, we forgot to ask this to both of you. If you could go back in time and give your younger self a talking to, Angie, what would you tell your younger self to avoid or change or?
I would tell myself to learn accounting and bookwork, all that kind of stuff, and definitely take notes, plenty of notes, journals. I would have loved to have seen my progress in like a notebook form on each project so that I could refer back to that and like, okay, I used this material, because there's a lot of times where I'm like, I know I did this before and I just can't remember what that technique, how did I do that? You know, I would definitely take notes on each project and tell myself to keep up with the time. I don't keep track of time because I'm working on multiple projects. It would be like, you know, it would be cool if I had a little chess timer and I'm like, okay, I started that one, stopped working on that one, started on this one. You know, that's one thing I don't really keep up with. I do keep up with days. Like I know how many days that I work on a project, but not necessarily hours. But I think I would do that. If I went back, I would try to keep track of that to better judge how long a specific project would take. And but definitely the accounting and bookwork, or either early on hire somebody to do that for you very early.
It's great advice. I love the journal, right? I mean, it's so important for any contractor. I don't care what you're doing. Make a folder, you know, a journal, whatever, you know, electronic, pen and paper. Put the grout, the materials used, the days you work, the hours, the husband's wife's name, emails, dog's name. I mean, pack it full of it with. I mean, these days, like I say, we can use a CRM, a digital CRM, like we have at Happy Tile Guy, or a pen and paper works just as good. Often,
and progress pictures to go along
progress
with it,
photos. Lee, how about you? Would you, if you had a time machine, what would you tell your younger self?
I would have said, go find somebody like us. Go find that. Where is that Angie? Where is that Joshua? Where is that person? I want to go work for you for a while. And I could have, you know, it took a long time to learn some things by trial and error that had I known somebody, God, if I'd have had somebody like that at 25 years old, I would have been doing more artwork and at a quicker pace many, 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 many years ago. But it all had to happen. There was nobody teaching. If there was, there were far and few in between. Maybe they weren't in my region. A lot of excellent craftsmen around here, but I didn't know anybody who did anything like this. So it was like, I just figured it out. Drew a picture, made a template, cut the piece. Does it fit? You know, on and on and on and on. So if I were anybody out there looking for or looking to get into this type of work, I would strongly suggest, you know, and we are all trying to help, and we have been through different avenues, roundtables, the guild, you know, on and on and on. We're trying to give them an upper hand, but if you really want to do this, seek out those people in your region and pick their brain, if nothing else. You know, strike up a relationship with that person. They can really help you. They can really help you advance into it a little more quickly, and maybe a little less. Maybe. Well, you're still going to lose a little money here and there because it's artwork. You can make decisions that cost you money.
Yeah.
You know, so, but anyway, I think that's the one thing I would have done.
Excellent advice. I see a lot of apprentices, you know, I mean, we see it in the group from time to time, and I know it's everybody's kind of pet peeve. You know, somebody who's a 1-year apprentice, you know, asking for business advice because they're striking out on their own. Granted, some of us are just going to do that no matter what, but I think Lee's advice there is solid. Get your apprentice in the chosen kind of, if you find yourself more driven towards the art and you're working for a commercial contractor who's slamming in 7-Eleven bathrooms, maybe find yourself somebody else to work under, kind of get a little bit more well-rounded. And it's not always possible. You know, maybe you live in an area where, you know, you just can't find that person to work for. There are some digital tools. You mentioned a couple of them, Lee. Why don't you expand? Tell everybody what you're doing with the guild, the Facebook group, and please tell everybody what you're doing with the NTCA. Because these are avenues. I mean, like I'm saying, people throughout the world, if they're interested in this type of work, can go and learn from the people who are doing it.
Well, I guess to start with, the guild was started for that purpose. It was to help others and show them that and to show some people that there's a lot more of us than they may have thought. You know, there's always been the community,
sure,
but I think it's much broader than a lot of people ever really knew. And then when you find that out, well, now you have that community, for support, you name it. So that kind of transferred over into us starting to do the artisan roundtables, and NTCA artisan roundtables. And that's also its main focus, is highlighting other artists, showing tools, methods, materials, anything we can do to help them not be in the place we may have been, 20 years ago. So those are just a couple of things. We're doing something. Joshua and I are doing a presentation for coverings. Once again, it's education, and just I think the hope is the more widespread this is, I think people are going to see there is a call for it. People just don't know about it.
Yeah, that's what yeah, exactly. And I brought that very important point up earlier, is people don't know what they don't know. I mean, if all they think they can get is, ugly tile or standard tile, right? Square tiles, rectangle, whatever, or maybe sheet tiles, which sometimes, they're going to end up spending, quite a bit on. They could get something truly custom, truly one of a kind, but they don't know where to find it. So, it's an important point. If you want to get into this work, make sure you're associated with these three as well as everybody else in the guild, and join those NTCA Zoom meetings, the artisan roundtables. Now, we had a couple questions from the audience. Does anybody have any favorite materials to work with? Porcelain, ceramic, marble? Josh, do you have a personal favorite?
There's no favorite for me. It's all color. It's just looking for the right color and texture. Try to stay away from certain materials if you've got some really small pieces. A lot of veining and whatnot. And stone isn't going to work out well for you if you got real small pieces. I don't know. I guess if I had a favorite, it'd probably be porcelain, just because porcelain's just really stable and stays together when you cut it. But that being said, there's a lot of stone that's really stable too. And, I'm working on a ceramic piece now. It's really super stable. So I don't have a favorite. It's just, for me, it's just picking out. I don't pick out a favorite type of tile. I pick out the colors and then just deal with
whatever's best. Angie, do you have a favorite product to work with?
Yeah, I think I do. Two. I like to work with marble and glass. So those two are my favorites. I think it goes back to like ancient mosaics. I really like the style. Mosaics have been around for centuries, and taking it back, the original mosaics were made with like glass and stone and all types of materials. But I really enjoy working with marble and glass. And I've been cut and I bleed almost every day.
Do you do any water jet cutting for your stuff?
Occasionally, when the project calls for it. So because each project is unique, I work with many different styles. So I'm open. Try to keep my mosaics diverse. So basically, I cater to the client, what they're looking for, and I replicate what they think that they want. So occasionally I do use water jet, but
very cool.
For the most part, try to not use water jet, but I do on situations where it needs to be like perfect everything.
The question was worded in such a way that I think they thought all you do is water jet cutting, and I knew that wasn't the case. I wanted to highlight that her work looks the way it does because it's handmade, and it is spectacular. It seems like a machine might make some of those cuts, but it's an art form that she's developed and perfected. Lee, how about yourself? Any favorite materials to work with?
Natural stone. It's always been even in our business, we've always installed more marble, granite, onyx, limestone, natural materials more so than tile, ceramic, or porcelain. So really it's that. And then I just love incorporating brass and glass and metals, whatever I can, into it as well. But for the most part, I just love the beauty inherent in the natural stone itself. So it elevates the piece just because it has that unique modeling built in.
Excellent. We've got a question from Patrick Keith up in, he's in a similar area to Josh, actually, on the water in Canada, on an island there. Have any of you had a project that you were able to keep open-ended, like it's basically T&M, which we know Lee has? The end result is paramount. They'd pay whatever it costs. Seems like it would be ideal. Do those projects come up often where it's a blank check, so to say? And if the audience has questions, now's the time to put them up. We're going to wrap this up pretty soon. So, do you ever get any blank check clients, Josh?
No, I'm still waiting for that person to call me. So if you're out there, look me up.
How about you, Angie?
I have a little bit, but it wasn't like on a large scale, more a smaller scale project. But like Josh, I'm waiting for that large blank check. That would be nice.
But I think the thing to remember with that, though, is it's not as easy as it sounds. You have to, just because it's T&M, you still better have the respect of that client and what they are paying you to do it. If you were to take advantage of that situation, that would get around pretty quickly. So even though it's T&M, you have to be respectful of that fact and honor that they are trusting you to make it happen in a timely fashion. Just because it's a so-called blank check, they know and trust us that we need to make extra money this week, so we're just going to drag our feet. Well, that's not the case, and you wouldn't last long around here if that word got out that you were gouging people.
Sure.
One thing I wanted to add for my pricing is, a lot of times I'll charge for the fabrication of the piece, and then there's an installation cost too. So it's not all lumped together. So there's the fabrication, and then there's the install, because, the install has its own complications too. And you never know exactly what you're going to run across for the install. So that's something I've done here the past couple of years is I'll charge the fabrication, and then I'll charge for the install. So
that makes sense. The other problem with those open-ended jobs, I would imagine, as smaller operations, and I'll just put this out there, maybe it'll help someone. It could be detrimental, because all of a sudden now you have one client for maybe a year, and you have to reject all the other clients. So for smaller businesses, that's something to keep in mind as well. It's always a balance there. I put your last name out there, Lee. Someone's looking to get a hold of you on Facebook. It's Callewaert. Is that how you pronounce it? Callewaert?
Callewaert.
Callewaert. Okay. Yeah. Callewaert. And then Thomas wants to know, I guess, what's the best way to get a hold of all three of you to talk and discuss about future projects? Would that be the Facebook group, the guild, probably?
Yeah, or private message us, or
Yeah.
That's probably the
Private
best way.
message.
Yeah.
My contact information is on my website and on all my social media, so I could take calls, text, email, instant message.
Easy to get a hold of.
Mm.
Yeah, we're all pretty easy to get a hold of, I think, except for you might want to think about what time you're calling Joshua.
Yeah, up in Alaska.
If you live on the East Coast, yeah, you might want to do a time check on that one.
Wait till after lunch for sure.
Yeah.
Now, this question, how long did it take to get to that client base that requested, the artwork, the inlays? I mean, you want to give a year amount, Josh? We already discussed this towards the beginning.
It's hard to put a time on that. It's living in a small place. Everything you do, they show it to their friends and people talk. And so, I mean, when I first moved here, I did. Homer had their first annual home show, which is nothing like any home show that anybody's ever been to. It was really small in the gymnasium, and I did that, and that really put me on the map. People are like, "Oh my gosh, look at the tile work this guy's doing." So between that and just, I'd say a year or two just out there pounding the pavement and, doing, offering some kind of a mosaic on every single job I was on. It didn't take long for people to realize that, this is the guy that does the mosaic work. So, I'd say a couple of years, really.
Yeah.
And then, 20 years down the road, it's almost kind of haunts you in a way that, people are like, oh my God, there's the expensive guy. All he does is this high-end artwork, but that's not the case. I mean, people, I don't know, people just think because you do these really cool installs that you're super high end. And well, I mean, it's high end because it takes 10 times as long as a normal shower. People just don't quite understand that.
So just get your name out there, and I think it's gonna be different in every case, right? I mean, but I would say yours definitely before you're getting to the type. I mean, that's for any business, frankly. I mean, I don't consider myself an artist in the genre of you three, but just for the type of clients I wanted to work for in California, I mean, 3-5 years before I'm starting to see them on a regular basis, flush them out, right, and starting to attract them, and they're working for friends of clients who liked our work and liked our crew. So I think I would say 3 to 5 years is probably standard. We got a couple more questions here I want to get to. Does anybody have a YouTube channel? No.
Okay. I've started one, but I would like to get involved in that. I actually watched or listened to your podcast about doing YouTube videos. It's on my list of things to do.
Yeah. I would think it'd be a good one. Angie, get yourself a camera with a time lapse or, however, I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but I would think you would have a lot of opportunity. I mean, all three of you. So we see there's at least one person here who would subscribe right away. So it's good. All right. This question is going to bring us into the employee topic a little bit. We'll touch on that. I know we're going a little long here. Anybody need to run? Are we good for another 10 minutes?
Okay.
How would you go about paying someone who is really serious to learn if they are proficient in tiling, remodeling, carpentry? They'd hate to start them out at a labor rate. Josh, do you have an employee?
Yeah, I'm first one here ever. I've had for a year now. So I'm still learning that. Lee's probably the better person to ask because he's definitely had more apprentices under his belt. I don't know. I just feel like, starting them off at a fair wage, you don't want to start too high because, they gotta work themselves up. I mean, it's just that there's a fine edge there of, I don't know, Lee.
Lee, what about you? Take us from the beginning. How do you find your employees, and do you start them out at minimum wage, or is it better? Is it worse? It wouldn't be worse.
It's probably better. It's probably a little better than that, but not much because I would prefer somebody that is completely green.
Like 18 years old.
I'd rather they know nothing.
Yeah.
It's just a lot easier, no learned bad habits, you know why, all the reasons why that's, but so yeah, they're generally going to be younger, which is another challenge. Especially when you get a little older, there's a couple generations between myself and some of my employees. So, you have to almost be more of a parent at times, just because you're accepting of your children right? When they do things that annoy you, but you know they just don't know any better. So it's a little like that, where you know you don't come from the same time period they do, so you have to be open. But I think they decide how fast they progress. I always tell my employees that that's up to you. I'm giving you the information, the training, the tools you need to move forward in your training. So you determine that. Just because you were here for 2 years doesn't mean there's a certain rate that you get because of that. It depends on what you've done with that 2 years. And they all understand that. And I've had employees that understand that they haven't put forth the effort and understand why they're stuck not making what they should make. And stuck in a position in the company that maybe they could have not be in if they would apply it themselves. So for the most part, they do understand that it is on them. You know.
And now I'm going to stress this point again. Anybody who's wanting to develop a full apprenticeship program, get with Lee, talk to Lee, pick his brain, follow him, his social media posts and what he talks about, because Lee's somebody who starts them young, green, we should say, and develops them to be an installer on their own. And he also has, from what I understand, a good history of retaining employees, and his employees actually like him. I met Lee because 18 months ago, or thereabouts, I believe, he won the first of its kind within the NTCA award, which was a Tile Artisan Craftsperson of the Year award. And I met Lee and Jane in Nashville. And the reason Lee won that award is his employees actually nominated him for that award. So I don't know a lot of people who can say that their employees would care enough to stick around after, so many years, plus nominate them for an award like this. So, I mean, that in itself speaks volumes to your character and the business you built, Lee. So congratulations again. I was impressed when I heard that story, and I'm still impressed to this day. I think that's it for all the questions. Did we miss anything that anybody wanted to get in here before we hang up, before we conclude? Sounds like we covered the basis. We covered everything, right?
We are. There is an opening at Dragonfly, just so everybody knows.
Oh, good to know. There's an opening at Dragonfly. There might be an opening with Angie, right?
Possibly.
I'm
still trying to. Yeah, it's tough with me. I do temp work, so it's mostly the grunt work. And not necessarily the designing end or the fabrication part of it, but it's more cutting tile, 5,000 times in a specific shape, that type of thing.
Now, are you going to look for a green horn, so to speak, or are you going to look for a tile person?
Well, I would be open to both, but the thing with it's good to have experience, but it's also what you can afford to pay for, because you're not I wouldn't necessarily be paying anybody to install or to do installations. I would be doing studio work. So that would be more so what I would look for, an apprentice type position.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Jane came in and wanted to remind everybody that Tile Artisan Guild on Facebook, that's where you will, Tile Artisans, plural, I should have said, on Facebook. It's a Facebook group. That's where you will find all three of these tile artisans. Listen, everybody, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today and sharing your knowledge, sharing what you've learned. We appreciate it. We appreciate your commitment to the industry. And that's, I hope you guys all have a great day. talk to you later, Josh, Angie, and Lee.
Thank
Thanks a lot,
you.
Luke.
You're welcome.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Luke.
My pleasure. All right, tile friends. Well, I truly enjoyed that discussion. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Until next week, have a great rest of your Sunday evening. Have a great week. And as always, stay profitable, tile friends.